agencies on the state level and the federal level is another thing. So I know the research and development of those vaccines are currently taking place, and the legislation just ensures that whatever is being negotiated on the marketplace, that low income and really all Americans would be able to afford it in a sense. There's also $136 million going to heating and cooling assistance within that first response package as well. So a couple weeks later, after the first response package passed, there was another package. It's called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. I'm sure y'all heard quite a bit about this one. Congress had to stay over for an extra 2 days just to get this one passed. And this one focused more on family, I would say. It extended paid family leave to all Americans and strengthened nutrition programs such as SNAP, just really put a lot of funds into the program to ensure those most in need are receiving the resources such as food, things of that nature. Also increase the funding for Meals on Wheels to ensure that our seniors are receiving deliveries during this pandemic, because as you know, everyone needs to stay in. And so we want to ensure that those who are most at risk are receiving the resources that the government promised, and that's by ensuring that those programs have essential funding there. So it also strengthened unemployment insurance quite a bit, but not necessarily as much as the third package I'm going to talk about here. The third package, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also known as the CARES Act, recently passed, I believe it was last week, in the House and both the Senate. The president just signed this into law. And this one is what everyone wants to know about. It's the rebates for all Americans. The CARES Act included that. It provides $1,200 in rebates for individuals with a gross income of less than $75,000 annually, $2,400 for married couples filing joint returns, and then I believe it's also additional $500 per qualifying dependent under the age of 17, with a $7,500 cap for a family of 5. Along with that, the CARES Act also included increases in unemployment compensation by an additional $600 in federal pandemic unemployment compensation to every weekly unemployment benefit, effective until the end of July. So you have a lot of time to actually file for that, get that in place. But once again, the implementation is a whole different animal that I wouldn't be able to speak to, but funding has been provided to ensure that unemployment benefits are being raised on a weekly basis there. And then that bill has a lot of other initiatives, PPE equipment for hospitals to ensure that those on the front lines are staying safe when they're trying to diagnose and ensure that all those who are suffering from the pandemic are being treated in the right light. But so anything in that nature, I'll dive into it when we get into the questioning, but I want to bring up the last fourth response package that Congress is looking to get into in the next couple of weeks here. Rumors have been going around saying that this package could be infrastructure package. So when you think infrastructure, think about water shutoffs. You know, for the city of Detroit, water shutoffs has been a huge issue and has actually contributed a lot to the spread of the pandemic in itself. And with that, I know that Congresswoman Lawrence has been an advocate for a national moratorium when it comes to water shutoffs. So this next bill likely could possibly include that language. I know the governor also put her response to the water shutoffs in place as well. But we're hoping for something nationally and some robust funding to also go into the water infrastructure to ensure that we have clean, safe water as we try to combat this pandemic. And we know washing our hands, all that is one of the best preventative measures to go about that. Also, when it comes to broadband access for our students, we want to ensure that they all have access during this time. The governor, along with other governors in various states, have made a declaration saying that all school buildings are going to be closed. You just have to do remote learning for the rest of the school year. And with that, we have a lot of populations who don't have broadband access, unfortunately. And with that, we're trying to ensure that those students without broadband access get the access that they need. So working with those providers and ensuring that the funds are going towards the right households, among other things. But just wanted to share that with you. That's the quick version of it all. But once again, glad to be here and look forward to talking further.
Thank you so much for giving us all of that great information. If I can ask you a question, and so many people are asking questions regarding the stimulus check that they are hoping to receive.
Right.
Can you talk about that stimulus check? And if you have not filed your income taxes for the past 3 years or whatever, will you still be eligible for the stimulus check, and what actually qualifies you for that stimulus check?
Yep. So for the stimulus check, from my understanding, I know our IRS has been really diving into it deep. We continuously get updates on the federal side, but those updates, they're continuous. So there's more to add to them all the time. At this this time and state, I know that you don't necessarily have to file your latest and greatest taxes. So 2019, you don't have to worry about filing those, not even 2018 necessarily. You could be a non-filer and still get the actual rebate in itself. However, it may take a little bit longer for you to receive the rebate. More than likely, it will also be by mail, because however you submitted your last tax returns is how you're going to, or the way in which you receive your refund, I should say, is how you would receive this stimulus check. So if you received it by direct deposit, you're going to receive your stimulus check by direct deposit. However, if you received it by check in the mail, you'll likely receive it in that way as well this time around. However, if you've moved around, you'd have to try to reach out to the IRS specifically and try to make sure your address is changed with them, or go through Social Security camp and do it that way as well.
Okay, and also will senior citizens and retirees be eligible for the stimulus check?
Yes, yes, definitely. As long as you are an adult. So I believe it's over the age of 17. As long as you're 18 or older, I believe you would qualify for the actual stimulus package, and as long as you're not making more than $75,000 a year individually.
All right, thank you so much for that great information. Can you hold on, because once we finish hearing from our panelists, we will have some questions.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you so very much, and thank you for that great update. We're going to move on to Constance Logan, and I know Constance is going to give us some great information. Constance is the Director of Small Business Affairs, Michigan. Constance?
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, Council President Brenda Lawrence.
Brenda Jones.
Yeah,
how are
thank
you?
you. I'm doing very well, thank you. And I'm glad to be here and glad that you're in good health. And it's a great opportunity to actually be here to talk about what's going on with the United States Small Business Administration. So for background purposes, so the U.S. Small Business Administration, we're actually located in Detroit, and we cover the entire state of Michigan, all 83 counties. And as you can imagine, we have been really inundated with concerns of all small businesses throughout the state of Michigan. One of the things that we worked on initially was we worked with the governor's office to make sure that the state of Michigan, the entire state of Michigan, could be designated as a disaster. Because with that disaster comes different programs from the federal government. And our first program that we have is our EIDL Injury Disaster Loan. And that loan is for small businesses that have been impacted through this virus that's running rapid. And this loan is a loan that is for small businesses. The terms are up to $2 million, 30 years. There's a 3.75% interest rate, and it's minimal documentation that you have to provide to qualify. And so that is it's something that's available now. If you go to our website, it's sba.gov/disaster. That's our first program. Our second program is a program that was actually just officially kicked off today. and that's called the Payment Protection Program. And that program is a program that's designed to provide small businesses with up to 8 weeks of payroll costs, including benefits. Now, this program was rolled out last night, but as I heard my colleague say earlier, Curtis, he mentioned that the program was rolled out, and it's a program that's being actually delivered through our lenders. So implementation is one thing, right? So as we work to implement this program, we're just very hopeful that small businesses will work with us. Be patient. We have a very small team. I have one team member on the line, Brian Picarasi, who's going to help us fill a lot of the questions. So this is a great program, but there are some particulars that you need to be aware of. And we're going to do our best to answer those questions, but just understand that it's going to take a process. We also have our resource partners, Small Business Development Centers, SCORE, Women's Business Centers that are here to help small business owners go through this process, filling out the applications, et cetera. A lot of small businesses are being approached to pay fees, to help them put their package together. But we have resources for small business owners to help. So those are prepaid tax dollars that small businesses have already paid for. So certainly we want to advise you of those resources. So again, we are here for the small business community to answer your questions today, next week, and going forward until we can loan out this $350 billion.
Thank you so very much for that update. I have just a question for you. On Tuesday, the City of Detroit, through the DEGC, launched the Small Business COVID-19 Relief Fund. And just on yesterday, Wayne County announced a similar fund. Are you familiar with those?
Yes, I am. So that fund is a fund that's delivered through the state, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
Okay.
And that's a grant fund. And so we are working very closely with MEDC and other partners to ensure that those individuals who can't qualify for a loan, that some of these other products can fill some of those gaps. So yes, I am very aware.
Okay, so my question is going to be, if a small business receives a grant from one of those sources, are they still eligible for the federal small business loan?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And are the federal loan funds distributed evenly across the state, or how are they being distributed?
They are. It's not set up by state or county. It's delivered through your lender, and yeah, it's kind of first come, first serve. So if you go to your lender and you apply for a loan, the Payment Protection Act is up to $10 million. And when you go to the bank, of course, if you qualify, for example, for 2 or 3 million, then that of course draws down. So, but no, it's not allocated by state, city, or county. It's first come, first serve.
Okay, so there's not just a certain amount allocated to Detroit, a certain amount allocated to Southfield, a certain amount allocated to each area. It's just you go and you apply, and that's how you get the dollars. You'll get them no matter, Detroit doesn't have a certain cutoff amount, is what I'm trying to find out. Okay.
No, ma'am, it does not.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for all of that great information. Thank you so very much. Can you also stay tuned with us for additional questions?
Yes, ma'am, I am here for the duration.
Thank you so very much. I am now going to, is Brian there with you as well? Or are you by yourself?
Brian is here.
Brian, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I did not, as of right now. That was very well said. I'll be here for questions as well, though.
Okay, thank you so very much. I will now move on to Michael. And Michael, I'm not going to mess up your last name. So I'm going to let you give us your last name.
All right, thank you, Council President Jones. I appreciate that. My last name is Polsinelli. My first name is Mike, and I'm the director of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Michigan State Office, with just like Connie Logan, with jurisdiction over the entire state. My office is actually located downtown in the Federal Building, 2 floors below Connie, and we work well together with SBA. So that's a great thing. First and foremost, I want to let everybody know that HUD is open for business. Many of us are, in fact, all of us, the entire staff of 140 people that work for HUD in Detroit, are working from home, but we're open for business. So if you have any questions relating to housing, homelessness, community development, your calls will be responded to and we will reach out to you. So I'd like to begin with just a few of the highlights of things that the department is doing in regards to COVID-19 and some of the changes we've made to our rules and regulations that will make getting through this pandemic hopefully a little less painful for all. So for our single family housing, if you have an FHA insured mortgage, as many people do, HUD has issued an order that there will be no evictions or foreclosures from an FHA insured single family home for a period of 60 days from March 18th. I tend to think if this goes further along with the pandemic that would likely get extended. But for right now, it's 60 days from March 18th. We're also requiring all of our mortgage servicers to offer forbearance for up to 6 months to homeowners that request it, and an additional 6 months after that if they're still being hurt economically by the COVID-19 through job loss and loss of income and what have you. In our multifamily side, we have many multifamily developments throughout the city of Detroit that also have FHA insured mortgages that are owned by private individuals. We have issued an order that there has to be a 120-day eviction moratorium for non-payment from HUD-assisted and low-income housing tax credit properties. HUD has added an additional $1 billion to fund the gap for project-based rental assistance, which is also known as Section 8. Because as incomes go down, as folks lose their jobs from due to the virus, we're going to need additional money to fund operations and cover that gap in rent that the government normally covers. We've added $50 million to our 202 developments, which are our senior housing for the elderly developments throughout the city. $40 million for rent loss, similar to the Section 8, and $10 million for other service coordination to help residents get through this. And $15 million has been added to the 811, which is housing for the disabled. And I will add that that is nationwide. That's just not for Detroit. But those properties are located in Detroit, those types of properties. Now, if you live in public housing, that's housing that's owned and operated by the Detroit Housing Commission. We're doing a couple of different things in order to get through this. We're allowing self-certification now for individuals to report a change in their income. In the past, you'd have to come into the office, you'd have to provide the paperwork. We don't want folks coming into the office and getting, we're keeping with the social distancing, so you can now self-certify that you've had a change in income that has reduced your income, thus would lessen your rent burden in public housing. We're also allowing the Housing Commission to do self-certification for physical inspections. Typically, we have a group of inspectors that go out on occasion and inspect public housing units. It's not wise to allow these folks into folks' homes while this virus is going on, so we're going to allow the Housing Authority to self-certify to HUD as to the condition of those units. We're also allowing the Housing Commission to use their operating funds to be used for things such as staff labor hours, additional labor hours for planning, response to COVID-19, to purchase personal protection equipment for its employees, and cleaning supplies such as disinfectants, sanitizers, etc. And then when it comes to community planning, Detroit is our largest grantee in the state of Michigan when it comes to allocations of CDBG funds. So under the CARES Act, as was so eloquently described by Congresswoman Lawrence's staff, there's been an additional allocation to Detroit. I just wanted to let you know what those exact figures were. So Detroit's getting an additional $20,758,619 for CDBG as part of the COVID-19 response that they can use as they battle this pandemic in the city. They've been awarded an extra $10,458,172 for what we call emergency shelter grant funds. Those are very important because in the city right now, with the homeless population, typically they go to shelters, which are very crowded and don't allow for the social distancing, the 6 feet to keep them safe. So they can use those funds to pay for hotel rooms and also, cleaning supplies, disinfectants, and other things to help keep the homeless population safe. And then finally, the city's also gotten an extra $422,489 to assist our HOPWA program, which stands for Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS. So anybody suffering from AIDS that's impacted by COVID-19, there's an extra $422,000 plus that HUD is providing to the city of Detroit for that purpose. And I just wanted to end my presentation here by giving a couple of phone numbers and websites, web addresses out there for anybody that needs HUD assistance. So first and foremost, I'd like to give you my office number. We answer all calls as they come in and we route you to the appropriate division. So that number is 313-226-7900. If you're having issues with your rental or finding a place to live or any type of foreclosure or eviction process, HUD funds what they call housing counseling agencies, many located in the city of Detroit. You can call them free of charge and they will counsel you and assist you. To find a counseling agency near you, you'd call 1-800-569-4287. And then finally, if you have any questions, please, by computer, you can send them to the web address answers@hud.gov. And then the last address I want to give you is HUD's overall coronavirus resource address that you can go to that will list very succinctly all of the things that HUD is doing to assist residents during this time. And that web address is www.hud.gov/coronavirus.
Okay, I just want to repeat the phone numbers that you gave out. I think your number is 313-226-7900. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And for counseling, that's 1-800-569-4287.
Correct.
And the overall website for HUD for the Corona-19 is www.hud.gov//corona. Is that correct?
Just one // So www.hud.gov/coronavirus.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Let me just ask you one question, if you don't mind. And I know you also worked for HUD in Detroit under the great President Obama administration.
Yes.
What are some of the ways HUD has assisted Detroiters since you have been here? And I know you were talking about the ways during the corona virus, but what other ways have HUD, since you've been there, assisted Detroiters? And can you just talk about some of those ways and what ways will HUD continue to assist Detroiters after the COVID-19?
Sure. So yeah, I became field office director back in 2014 under the Obama administration. And at that time, the administration was very laser focused on Detroit because of the bankruptcy of the city and also of General Motors and Chrysler. So at that time, they created a program called or a task force, was called the Federal Partners Task Force. HUD was a lead in that, along with EPA, Department of Energy, and we worked on ways to assist the city coming out of bankruptcy to become more resilient. At that time, HUD awarded the city extra money for disaster recovery due to flooding and doing green infrastructure. We provided technical assistance to the city as they got their housing and revitalization department more functioning and up and running so they can handle their CDBG dollars on a more timely basis so they didn't lose that money. You know, and the Department of Energy, for example, worked with the city in getting the street lights replaced and with the LED lights and what have you. So that was a great, very high level federal partners coming in to work with the city, and we did that. Under the current administration, you know, I told my staff, I said, the good news is Secretary Carson's from Detroit. I said, the bad news is Secretary Carson's from Detroit. So Detroit's kind of under the microscope in that regard. I have found, you know, for example, when Secretary Carson made his first trip outside of Washington as HUD Secretary, he came to Detroit first. So he definitely has shown an interest in Detroit. He is working right now to set up these Envision centers throughout the city where we're working to bring other federal partners on board in certain areas so that residents don't have to necessarily come down to the federal building to see HUD or out to the east side to see Social Security or the west side to go to the IRS or what have you. We're trying to bring these partners in under one roof. It's been slow. It's been tough getting some of these federal partners to participate, but I do see good things happening at the two in Detroit in particular, more so than even those we have out of the city. So I do see some good programming going on at the Detroit Housing Commission, at their site, and at Life Remodeled site on the near west side. So, you know, Detroit will always be a very important partner for HUD because it's a very important city to America. So that's, you know, regardless of administration.
All right. Thank you so very much for that vital information. It's just so important just to know because people have been concerned with what happens if I cannot pay my house note. And just yesterday, someone was on the call, and I hope they're back on the call, and I don't know if they were referred to you, that was saying that they were evicted from public housing. And, you know, it was during this period, and I did not have the answers for them. The chief judge asked them to contact his office, and it seems as though the information that he gave us yesterday, and based on what the chief judge said yesterday, and based on what you said today, the person should not have been evicted, but hopefully they are calling back in today to get some more information. So thank you so much for that great information, and hopefully you can stay around just to answer questions.
I will absolutely do that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Our next panelist is Kimberly Berry, who is the Deputy Director for UIA, the state of Michigan. Kimberly?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Council President Jones. We really appreciate you having us here. Thank you for having this forum for us to talk with our residents about and our Michiganders about. I want to first and foremost thank everyone so much for their patience. We appreciate the patience of the Michigan residents that have shown us at this time. I want to give a couple of facts real quick so that people understand that we understand their frustration. But I also wanted to share that we did file over 311,000 claims last week. So that's 82% of our people were getting through. So we have changed some of the way our systems are flowing as far as the computer system is going, as far as the phone system is going. We're moving staff around and have now moved to having people reach out on specific days according to the letters of the alphabet. And so that has really helped us increase our volume and our ability to assist more customers at this time. So I wanted to make sure I explain how to file for unemployment to begin with, and that is at www.michigan.gov/UIA. Again, that's www.michigan.gov/UIA. That website is available 24/7. We are encouraging people, though, to use it between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m.
Thank you so very much for that information.
I'm sorry.
Yes, can you hear me? Thank you so very much for that information. And let me just ask you a question, because one of the biggest complaints I've been hearing, and I know you've been hearing it as well, is that the wait time on the phone is extremely long to apply for unemployment. So is there any advice that you could give to our listeners as opposed to just be patient, stay in the house, and be cautious and be patient?
Yes, so the best advice we can give is for those on the phone, to please letters A through L, call Monday and Wednesdays between 8 and 5. Letters M through Z, please call on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Friday between 8 and 5 are open for anyone else who could not get through on their allotted date and time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And are there any additional requirements to COVID-19 related requirements to apply for and to receive that unemployment? Any additional ones? Ms. Berry?
No. Yes. Can you hear me, President?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize.
No problem.
Nothing has changed for us as far as providing services through the CARES Act. We'll be able to provide services to low wage and other workers affected by COVID-19. This will include workers who are independent contractors, who have lower wages, who are maybe a Uber driver. So we've increased the amount of capacity to give benefits to other recipients as well.
Okay. Thank you so very much for that great information that you have given to us. And I'm hoping that you can also hold on the line because I know there's probably going to be some questions for you as well.
Definitely. I'll be here.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Our next panelist is Mr. Dion Williams. And Mr. Williams is the Director of External Affairs and Faith-Based Initiatives for the Governor's Office. Mr. Williams.
Yes, Councilwoman Jones, how are you this afternoon?
I am blessed by the best. Thank you so much for asking. How are you?
Amen. I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me, and to all the colleagues that are on the call, on this web call. We appreciate everyone, and you're looking beautiful as well. I'm glad you're doing okay, as well as your Chief of Staff, Mr. Grady. I appreciate you guys for putting this together. And to all of the residents that are out there in the city of Detroit, we appreciate, again, as my colleague, Ms. Berry, just mentioned, we appreciate your patience, understanding that this situation, we've never seen something like this before. And as your leaders in this community, we are doing the best to make sure that we provide every essential service, every aspect of your life, and trying to make sure that you have the resources that you would need to survive through this crisis. With that being said, I'll be very brief and just open it up for questions because I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions. But as we all know, the governor on during her town hall and on Wednesday, she did close down the schools statewide permanently. The EO 2020 36 is the EO, which is the executive order protecting workers who stay at home and stay safe when they are in close proximity or they've been in contact with someone that's already been in contact with the virus. And that was released today. That was released today. And that came out maybe about 2-3 hours ago, where if anyone in the community that you know of that is currently working and they've been in contact with anyone in the community that has the virus and they self-quarantine themselves, they cannot be fired. They cannot be fired. As well, she did close down the schools, as I was speaking to, she did close down the schools statewide, and to mitigate all of the questions and the desires of what was going to happen with our schools and what's going to happen with the education of our students, each local district is responsible for submitting a plan to the state that talks about educating our students, whether it's online training, whether it's online resources, or if it's packages that are being delivered to our students, because we understand that each district is different. Each district has its own set of issues or barriers. Prime example, City of Detroit, we know that we do not have broadband wireless activity in our city. So we are looking to we are partnering with several different entities to make sure that that's mitigated, but the local districts are responsible for putting a plan together to submit to the state to move forward as far as education. Also, I want to talk about the new issue of the emergency order that is requiring compliance of the EO underneath the penalty of anybody that's out in the community. They may receive, when it's to stay home, stay safe, they may receive, if found in uncompliance, they may receive up to $1,000 fine and a misdemeanor. So I just want, and that came out of Michigan Department of Health and Human Services today as well. As well, she suspended the face-to-face, as I said earlier, the face-to-face learning from K through 12 schools. And then also earlier this week, she expanded the emergency declaration and declaring a state of a disaster, which several of my colleagues had mentioned before, which allows the state to receive more federal funding and more resources to help our community. So those are 4 of the major issues that we're facing, or EOs that came out. If you want to, you can go on to michigan.gov/coronavirus. Again, that's Michigan spelled out, .gov/coronavirus. And you can find all of the updates to the executive orders, the executive directives, as well as updated information from our CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control. You will see pertinent information as to all of the sites to where the coronavirus is mitigating and where our red hot spots are across the state. And then if you want to, those individuals that want to help volunteer, you can go to michigan.gov/fight COVID-19. Again, michigan.gov/fight FIGHT COVID-19 to help volunteer, if you want to make some donations to the community. And then also, if you want to access other resources, you can dial in to 211. Again, 211 to get that pertinent information of how to volunteer, to help donate, to work with our food pantries with food distribution and things of that nature.
Thank you so very much for that information. I just want to ask you, about Executive Order 2020-35. Executive Order 2020-35 regarding COVID-19. And
Yes,
I know
ma'am.
there's a lot in that executive order, but can you just talk about the ones that will have impact on the daily lives of the public the most?
So 2020-35, again, that's suspending face-to-face learning. That's the K through 12 schools for the remainder of the year. As local districts will develop the plans for their students on education moving forward. Executive Order 2020-36 is protecting workers who stay at home, who stay safe when or if they come in close contact with someone that's sick from the coronavirus. They cannot be fired. Again, I repeat that, they cannot be fired.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yesterday we had someone asked a question in regards to the governor's executive order and whether or not someone who was doing construction, if they were out doing construction and they're not adhering to the governor's executive order, who should they call and what should be done?
Again, call 211 for that information and let someone know and notify that, because understanding this, doing construction right now or home renovation, that is not an essential job. I'm sorry, I understand that people need to make their money, but again, we put things in place to where people will be able to receive funds. What we're trying to do is mitigate the spread of this virus. One person goes out and they can infect 40 people. That 40 people can then infect 2,000 people. And it goes on and on and on. So the best way to mitigate that is for everyone to stay home and stay silent and stay enclosed.
Okay, thank you for that. And just, I want to ask a question on the faith-based side. And I know at one point you had a lot of the congregation still having church, and I know there is a separation of churches and state. In a situation like this, can you talk about whether or not that separation still takes place? This is a pandemic like we've never seen before. We know that several of the churches have had their parishioners come in and have actually been diagnosed with COVID-19. So can you just tell me whether or not that separation of state and churches still takes place? Is it still in order? And I know a lot of the congregations have now started doing their worshiping via Facebook, via Zoom, in other manners. But I'm just wondering, because I was curious, legally, does that separation still exist?
Yes, so and thank you for that question. That's a very poignant question and statement. So yes, there is still a separation between church and state. And we have asked that pastors, and we're partnering with our faith community. Me as being the director of faith-based affairs, taking control or taking over the whole state and dealing not only here in southeastern Michigan and Detroit, but on the West Coast, Grand Rapids, Battle Creek, Kalamazoo, Benton Harbor, Saginaw, Bay City, Midland, and even up north. We've been in contact with several of the ecumenical leaders across the state and held several different regional and statewide calls with not only the governor, but as well as the lieutenant governor regarding the mitigation of their services, understanding that it's going to be impacting them and their congregations. And we know that these guys are on the front line of everything that we do. The resources and mitigating fear, mitigating the anxiety and the disconnect and the depression that people are going through. So a lot of the community call upon them. So what we ask them to do is we try to mitigate the services and the person-to-person contact by doing it from, and we were following the CDC guidelines from 250 down to 50 members. And we asked them to use alternative ministering methods, whether it was a drive-through ministry where you was drive up in at the church, sit in the parking lot, and some pastors in some churches, they put big video screens outside and they ministered the message that way, or they did it online, or they did it via the web or Facebook Live. So, but to answer your question, yes, the faith community has been impacted tremendously, where you had several pastors across the state, especially within one denomination, have passed away from contracting the virus. And so it is hitting very close to home to a lot of them. So yes, to answer that question, there is still a separation between church and state, but our partners, which is the faith community, they have come on board tremendously, and they're telling people, their own parishioners, to stay home, and they've eliminated their services across the board.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And so let me just ask you, and I don't know if you have this answer, but many of those congregations, they also have mortgages. And I know that there's something in place for residents who have mortgages, who have a loss. Do you know if there is anything in place? And maybe I should ask someone from the federal side, if there's anything in place to help the faith base when it comes to the loss that they will experience, because many of them still have tremendous mortgages. Can anyone answer that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're doing, we're in constant contact.
Mr. Williams?
I'm sorry, I'm back here. I'm sorry, excuse me, I was having a little problem. So one of the things that we're doing currently right now is we're working with the banks and the mortgage companies to help facilitate the relaxation of their mortgages and their bills, along with our utilities, DTE and consumer energy, and that's statewide, because we understand that a lot of the churches operate off of tithes and offering, and that's how they continue to do the ministry that they do within the community. But we are working the SBA loans and the grants that are available. They can apply for those as a nonprofit organization to help mitigate some of their losses. And we are talking with the banks and the mortgages, and we're asking the pastors themselves to contact their banks and their mortgage companies. And a lot of those entities, those financial institutions, are working with the faith community to relax their mortgages and their payments.
Okay. Thank you so very much for that response. Great information to know, as all of our panelists have provided us with great information. I am going to again wish my producer, Jasmine Barnes, a happy birthday. I can't wish her a happy birthday too many times because she is working on her birthday and have been working since early this morning when I started talking to her and was working late last night getting this together. And so I want to just say again, happy birthday to you, Jasmine Barnes, and to all of my staff. Thank you for the work that you have done to ensure that this COVID-19 community engagement is continuing. I'm going to move on to the question and answer portion. And again, I want to thank all of the panelists who have given us great information, and see who we have that has questions.
Madam President, as we go to the question and answer portion of our series, I would remind our callers that if you're on the phone, you can press *9, and that will allow you to raise your hand in the meeting so that I can know that you'd like to make a comment or ask a question. Our first, I will be calling off the last 3 digits of your phone number. So that's how we will identify our next caller. So our first person that has a question is caller number 052. Caller number 052, you are unmuted.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, it's Scotty Bowman. I have actually a couple of things. I'll throw them out there real rapid fire. One, I'm wondering if there will be hearings online, since we haven't been able to have it otherwise, regarding the addition of District 4 to the community advisory list in the ordinance. Second, I'm wondering about how people are able to contact the city clerk and why the city clerk can't answer emails regarding the election process and things like petitioning to get on the ballot and so forth. Thirdly, a question as to whether or not somebody is going to do something to stop violations of civil rights under color of law. Specifically, I heard someone mentioning people being fined $1,000 for exercising their First Amendment right to peaceable assembly.
Mr. Williams, I don't know if you have any response to what is going on as far, and I don't know that that would be a city clerk's responsibility answer. I think that would be more of a Secretary of State, and whether or not the governor.
He's putting that list together.
Pardon me?
Are you coordinating that with him?
I'm sorry, say that again. I missed that, I'm sorry.
The question about the election, and I think his question was regarding the election and the petitions and all of that. And he was saying he was trying to reach out to the city clerk and not getting a response. And I don't know that there has been any decision that has been made by the governor or by the Secretary of State in regards to the election and the petitions and all of the above.
So to answer that question, no, the governor has not made a decision, and neither has the Secretary of State. I know we've been in conversation and trying to figure this thing out. And also what I've been doing is directing it to our Deputy Secretary of State, Mr. Hester Wheeler, and he might be another candidate that could come on maybe at your next showing to kind of answer that question.
Okay. Thank you so much for that question, that answer. And I think, Mr. Bowman, you asked a question about the CDCs, and as you, I think you are aware that council has been pretty much on recess and have not actually dealt with the CDCs at this particular time due to the COVID-19 and the Stay-at-Home Act. And so we have not dealt with the CDC, particularly the district that you are referring to, and I'm sure it will get addressed as we go back. We are looking at going back, basically dealing with the budget. At this particular time, there's not been a decision as to when the committees will start back to meeting, but that will be something that I'm sure will be addressed in the committee. And I think there was a third question that you asked, and that was dealing with civil rights being violated. And I'm not sure I understand how you're referring to the civil rights as being violated. And I don't know. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, first of all, on the first part, it was really about a city office because it was about the petitioning and the when the ballots because the petition's being due for election to a city office, that'd be Community Advisory Council, and I was already corresponding with someone in the city Bureau of Elections about it, not the Secretary of State. Okay. And then all of a sudden the correspondence stopped. And so my thought is because we're at home doesn't mean we can't answer emails or phone calls is my thought. And that extends on to whether or not there could be a virtual meeting regarding city council business. And it seems like we have one right now. The final thing, though, on the civil rights violations is that in the First Amendment, people have a right to peaceably assemble. There's not a 6 days clause in the Constitution, and therefore there are no sick days for the civil rights. And people peaceably assembling is not anything anyone could be lawfully fined $1,000 for unless the person doing it is violating the rights under color of law.
Okay. So again, the situation dealing with the CDC, and I don't know if all of the signatures had been turned in. I don't have any of that information. And I know that the clerk's office does have people working from home, and I cannot respond as to what they are doing from home because the clerk is a elected official herself, and what she has heard people doing, I cannot answer. That would be something for the clerk's office to answer, and no one is in the office right now, as you are very well aware of. So that would have to be a clerk's response, and I cannot respond to that one. And as far as the civil rights, I don't know if you want to talk about Dion that. I know you talked about the governor giving the $1,000 fine for someone not obeying the stay at home executive order. And I don't know, and I think it's not just happening in Michigan where fines are being issued, but if you want to speak to that to the best of your ability, or I don't know if you do want to speak to it.
I know that the fines, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services just issued this executive order or this emergency order helping out the executive order as far as requiring compliance. And for those individuals that are out there in defiance of the ordinance, excuse me, the fines are up to $1,000. How that's going to work or who's going to be doing the enforcement, I'm not for certain of that. I cannot speak to that at all. Okay.
Thank you so very much. We're going to move on to, and thank you for your questions, to, I think that was 052. We're going to move on to our next participant.
Yes, ma'am, Madam President. And I would remind all of our viewers, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment in today's series, please press *9 on your telephone. And I will call off the last 3 digits of your phone number to let you know that you are the person who is next to ask a question. Our next person with a question or comment is caller number 558. Caller 558, your phone is unmuted.
Caller 558, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for sharing all this information. My name is David. I live in 48216 Harvard Richard. A couple of questions. First, over 80% of home sales in the city of Detroit are not with traditional mortgages. They're land contracts or some other form of secondary market financing. Are land contracts or forms of non-federally insured financing covered under any of these rules? 2, when will self-employed 1099 individuals be able to begin filing for unemployment? And 3, I think it was Mr. Williams was talking about generally partnerships to solve the broadband challenge. Where can I connect with someone who can give me a straight answer about some of those connections rather than mailing around a COVID website? Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the first question would go to our HUD department.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So unfortunately, no. The HUD rules on forbearance, evictions, foreclosures would not pertain to a land contract. Only to those that have some type of HUD assistance or HUD insured mortgage. However, saying that, I do believe that the governor's order on a stay of foreclosures and evictions would apply to that, and even going further down the government chain to the county, I believe Wayne County has also put some type of stop. I don't know for how long, but they've also put a halt to evictions and foreclosures. So they would be covered by the state and the county as to the best of my.
Thank you for that answer. And I know On yesterday, Chief Judge McConaughey talked about the heart of evictions. And so I think that would include any evictions that the Chief Judge was referring to. So not necessarily just the FHA. I think it was any evictions. So thank you for it.
Correct. And I believe the county is doing the same when it comes to foreclosures.
Okay, yes, most definitely. We had Treasurer Eric Sabri on yesterday, and he talked about no foreclosures as well. So thank you so much for that response. I think the second question, and I was taking notes and my pen fell somewhere. So the second question, can my staff or can you all remember who will respond to the second question that he asked?
Council President, I believe the next person would be Dion Williams that may be able to respond to the gentleman's question.
Mr. Williams?
I truly apologize. I did receive a phone call during this conference, and so I did not hear the second question. If somebody can repeat it for me.
Caller, can you repeat it? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is David. The third question was regarding the sort of acknowledgement that you were working on partnerships to solve broadband challenges. 52% of Detroit households do not have regular internet availability for a number of different reasons, and I'm working on a coalition of community organizations to begin looking at a city charter amendment to have public lighting authority address this issue, since they have a distribution network already built. So I was curious to know what you're doing specifically around broadband partnerships and how that might impact the city of Detroit and adjacent communities with very similar challenges. The second question was regarding when can 1099s employees, those self-employed, file for unemployment.
Okay. So Mr. Williams.
I got that. Yeah, I'm sorry. So we're working with some of our community business leaders, such as Rapid Fire and Comcast, and we're working with those broadband companies to make sure that the city of Detroit, and we're developing a partnership so that the city of Detroit and other communities that do not have broadband access actually get that access.
Okay, and the question regarding unemployment.
Regarding unemployment, I believe Ms. Berry might be able to answer that question.
Yeah, I am.
I can. Thank you so much for the question. We are looking.
Ms. Berry, we have lost you. We're having technical difficulty.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're waiting for additional guidance from our partners at the federal level to explain to us how they want us to administer their funding to those individuals. If they have already applied, we're asking the federal government to allow us to just flip them over from their regular UIA denial to the other CARES program. So if they've already applied, then they just need to hold tight. They don't need to do anything additional. We'll try and get them. If they have not applied, then they can just bear with us a little bit longer for additional guidance. We would appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. And thank all of the responses to all three questions. Our next caller and participant.
Yes, ma'am, Madam President. Our next caller is caller number 534. Caller 534, your audio is unmuted.
Yes, hi. This is Joanne Warwick. I've got two questions. One is that I'm wondering if Council President Jones, if you can reach out to people and somehow it just seems to me it might be possible to have a doctor at the testing sites to do the screening. Now, maybe you can't do that due to the number of kits, but given the number of people who don't have insurance or may not have a regular doctor, if they're showing symptoms and you tell them they got to go find a doctor, you could be basically asking them just to die. So it seems to me that that some efforts toward that could be worked out. And by the way, I must say that Governor Whitmer has been making some statements that greatly support Medicare for all, which I hope that when we come out of this, we'll realize we need to do. So I hope that can be looked at. And then the second question is that if construction services are non-essential, then why is the land bank selling property? In fact, some for sale signs popped up during this pandemic when so many people are being squeezed, economically squeezed. It seems to me to be unjust to be allowing them to sell property. If other people can't go out and do their work, then they shouldn't be able to do that. That seems to be non-essential. And thank you.
Thank
Address those.
Thank you so much for your comments, Ms. Ward. So your first response is, if someone does not have insurance and they contact the number for the city, there are doctors who the city has worked with that will assist these individuals with a description to be able to get the test if they need to get the test. And so if they look on the city website and they call that number, and there's also a list of doctors that are on the city website that are working with the city hand in hand in order for those who do not have insurance to be able to get assistance. That's the first response. The second response to the land bank is that I was not aware that the land bank is working and it's putting up signs. I was not aware of that, and I will follow up on that. So thank you for that information. We will move on to our next participant.
Excuse me, Council President, before you move to your next question, Dion Williams wanted to give out his telephone number if he can. He has another engagement and he'll have to leave.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. You have the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And again, I appreciate the call, and I appreciate being able to connect to the community at large. And thank you so much for hosting this. My contact number is Williams, the letter D, 67 at Michigan spelled out .gov. My email, again, Williams D 67 at Michigan spelled out .gov. My telephone number is 517-282-9259, 517-282-9259, and that is a cell number. It is on 24/7, so you can contact me all the time. I apologize, but I do have a 5:30 another conference call that I need to get on with the Council of Bishops. I'm sorry, I apologize, but thank you so much for inviting me, and hopefully I was able to give pertinent information to the community. And again, if you have any other questions that may come up, you can contact me directly or through your office. You can get in contact with me, and I'll make sure we get answers for the community.
Thank you so much, and thank you for giving us the pertinent information that you gave to us this day. Thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you. You too. God bless.
God bless.
Director Williams, take care of yourself, my brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you. You're looking good there, brother. Love
Yes,
that tie.
I gotta look good, you know, when I'm with Council President Brenda Jones.
All the time.
So our next caller is caller 313. And callers, if you would like to be recognized with a question or comment, please press *9 on your phone. Caller 313, that's the last 3 digits of your phone number. You are unmuted.
Caller 313, You have the floor.
Caller 313, you are unmuted. That's the last 3 digits of your phone number. Caller 313.
Caller 313, are you still there? Are
All
you
right.
still there? Okay, if we can move on to the next caller.
Yes, ma'am, we can. That is caller 134.
Caller 134.
You are unmuted.
Hello, my name is Monique Taylor, and I am in District 7. What I wanted to say, it might not be a question, but I just want to know how come everybody keeps saying, if we want to volunteer, please volunteer, but we got the stay-at-home order, so it get very confusing because, like they said, by testing running out everywhere, you don't know if you have it, but they want you to treat everybody as if they have it, so it gets confusing with some of this messaging. That's what I wanted to say. Like, it just gets very confusing because some of us, we really do, because that's what we love to do, is volunteer our time. But at this particular juncture, it's very frightening to say, oh, we want to go volunteer. And then now with him saying about people being fined for not being out for essential reasons, you don't know what to do. It's very confusing.
Thank you for that. And if you are volunteering for COVID-19, that it would be considered essential services. If you're volunteering for a COVID-19 project, I'm sure that would be considered as essential services. And so if you have any questions regarding what you would be volunteering for and whether or not it is essential services, you can contact my office and leave a message at 313-224-1245. We will follow up with you if you leave your information and you let us know what it is you are wishing to volunteer for. We will follow up and let you know whether or not that is considered by the governor's order essential services. Thank you.
And Madam President, also, if a person has a question about something of that nature, they can call the City of Detroit's COVID-19 hotline, which is 313-876-4000. Once again, that's 313-876-4000, and you can either get an answer to your question or get directed to the appropriate resource. Our next caller, last 3 digits of your phone number is 148. Caller 148, you are unmuted.
Good afternoon or good evening, whichever time it is. This is Marcy Turner, and I would like to say hello to Council President Jones. I haven't seen you in a good while personally, but I've seen you on television quite a bit. I'm glad to have you do this town hall meeting via teleconferencing. So I appreciate that because people do have a lot of questions.
Thank you.
That being said, yes, thank you. And that being said, I'd like to ask, someone asked me about the CARES Act and about the $1,200 stimulus for a single person that's under 65, not on disability, but hasn't worked in the past several years, not getting any unemployment, just out of the system, kind of. Will they be eligible for the $1,200 stimulus, and how do they go about contacting the appropriate party to get on the list? That's number one. Number two, I think it may have been answered earlier, but my second question has to do with small businesses, not independent contractors. They're 1090 or necessarily 1099, but a small business. I think they're going to roll out a separate guideline for small businesses like they are doing the independent contractors. And can someone expound on that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask our panelist, Curtis Doster, if you would answer the first question regarding the stimulus check. And this is the legislative director for Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence's office.
Yes, so for the actual stimulus checks, they still, even if you haven't worked in the past couple of years, as long as you're filing for your taxes, you would apply. But even if you haven't filed as of late, you still would be eligible. The IRS will be using your Social Security as one of the ways to send these checks as well. Then in light of that, they're also creating their own, like a separate website for those who may fall in between the cracks when it comes to these actual checks. So the website should be up in the next week or so. You'll go onto the website and you can check in to see when it is up and running on irs.gov/coronavirus. And then the website will allow you to leave your name, your contact information, and to see your actual status when it comes to in itself. But even if you haven't worked, you still would apply. They're going to use your Social Security and use all exhaustive measures to ensure that payment is in fact made.
Okay. Am I being heard now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Yeah. Now, can you give me that in because it faded out a little bit? Is it irs.gov/coronavirus? Is
yes.
the website that's
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So just continue to check that website. It will have more information as it relates to the other website the IRS is creating to allow for those individuals.
You're fading out. Your voice is fading out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Sorry about that. Yep, so I said irs.gov/coronavirus. As mentioned earlier, for those filers who are falling in between the cracks, for those who haven't necessarily received their checks, stimulus checks yet, the IRS is creating their own website separately for that. So you can put in your information and then check in to see what the status is. But the checks will start going out in the next couple of weeks here. They said in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I believe. So watch out for that. If you filed earlier, you would get them sooner than later. But if you haven't filed in a while, you just kind of have to be patient. So they will be giving these checks out all throughout 2020, the whole year here.
Okay, thank you. And the second question was dealing with the Small Business Administration. And if someone from Small Business Administration can respond to that question. I know we have 2 people on the line from SBA.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer. I was wondering if we could repeat the question to make sure I understood it.
Oh?
Yes.
Yes, my question is for small business to apply for unemployment. I understand about the information for applying for a loan, but for unemployment for small business, are small businesses eligible for unemployment? And if so, what is the guidelines or mechanism to apply for it?
So,
for unemployment.
So I'm unclear. I'm not sure that I can answer the question about unemployment. I can answer specific questions on the 1099 and the payroll protection program, but I think the unemployment piece might be somebody else's purview. I'm not sure. I don't know. Connie, do you have any thoughts on that?
I could take that one. This is Kimberly Berry from Unemployment Insurance Agency. So when you say the small business, are you saying can their employees file? Is that what you're asking, or can the owners file?
The owner, he's a single owner of a business, but he has a LLC, so he's considered a small business, I would think. And he's been, he's not an essential services business, so he's been shut down. So can he, as a small business, apply for unemployment because of the coronavirus shutdown?
So the agency does not discourage anyone from applying because, again, as I indicated earlier, if they apply and they are denied for regular unemployment, we may still be able to qualify him under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance or the PEUC. So if he applies and he's denied, we'll try and run him through the other 2 programs as well to make sure that he doesn't qualify for those. So I would encourage him to attempt to apply.
Okay, one is the pandemic, and what's the other one called?
One's the pandemic and one's the CARES Act. It doesn't matter.
Uh,
No. He just needs to apply for unemployment insurance.
mhm.
Unemployment insurance. If he's denied, we'll automatically switch him over to the other two. He just
Okay, thank you.
the first one, because I don't want you to look for that application because it's not up yet.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for that response. Our next caller, participant.
Caller, for your call. Our next caller, Madam President, last 3 digits of the phone number is caller number 855. Caller number 855, you are unmuted.
You have the floor. Thank you.
Good evening. I think my question might have been for Mr. Williams. The question was really about the essential employees. I understand that the construction doesn't fall under essential employees, but what's the best thing for an employee that's being classified essential and have to go to work and do construction? What's the best agency to report that to get it resolved?
If I'm not mistaken, I think he said dial, was it 211 to my staff?
Yes, he did say if you have that type of complaint to dial 211 and they will handle it.
So you can dial 211 from a cell phone and it'll go where it needs to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, call.
I think we have 313 back on the line. I think 313 is back on the line.
Yes, ma'am, we do. And let's
Can you
see.
hear me now?
Yes.
Hi. Oh, thank you. I have a couple of questions. Now, if someone has a land bank house and it's their own house and they're working on it, can they work on their own house or they just need to stop?
If you are the person that's working on your own home and you are not having anyone come into contact with you, and you're the only person that's working, I would say if you own the home, you're taking care of your own home, and that would not be considered going to a job because you're working your own home residence.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is, I'm working for City of Detroit with Goal Line and through a nonprofit organization. So I'm like a contract employee. So would I apply for the unemployment as a contract employee?
Yes, you would. If you file for the regular unemployment, again, we're waiting for additional guidance, but if you file for regular unemployment and are denied, we will try and switch you over to one of the other programs. So yes.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is for HUD. Is there any funds for someone who's not safe in their home that needs a repair grant?
HUD, if you can apply.
Nope, I'm here. So there's a couple of different things. HUD gives the city CDBG money every year, and then the city allocates it for purposes of home repair. In the past, I do know the city had a pretty robust grant program for needed repairs. They have now switched over to their 0% home loan program, where it's really a loan now at 0%. And you work with the bank who then subsidizes the interest on it. So you as the homeowner don't pay interest on the loan. That said, also, I do understand that the city, even though they've moved over to this 0% loan program, they do still have a grant program for those that are most in need as well. So I suggest that you contact the city's Housing and Revitalization Department. They can give you more details on how the both programs are run. And you can also find information online about them as well if you go to the city's website and go to Housing and Revitalization.
Thank you.
Okay, 'cause on the zero loan, you still need to have the money to repay it. So if you're low income, you don't have the money to repay it, then it still doesn't do you any good.
That is correct. There was a lot. There's been a lot of pushback on the city moving to that platform. But like I said, they do still maintain a grant program. I don't know what the parameters are for qualification, but if you qualify, then definitely go for the grant program.
I know a lot of the grant programs were deemed for seniors, and if you're on disability, then you don't qualify as a senior, then you're shut out that way too. So, but I'll check with that department and see.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next caller is caller number 244. Caller 244, you are unmuted.
Caller number 244.
4244?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, 244, sorry. Hi, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is blessed and staying safe. I was calling the first one was, if someone is in startup phase, which they have a year in, but they're the owner of it, like the previous person was talking about, just one employee, can they apply for the grant and the loans that's available by the SBA? Hello?
Yes, that would be our small business, Constance Logan or Brian Picarazzi. Let's see if we can get them.
If we could get our Small Business Administration unmuted.
Constance?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, you will qualify for our disaster loan. So I encourage you to apply at sba.gov/disaster.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is for, I believe, HUD. Is there a place for residents who are getting misplaced through the landlords, evicting them still, even though they're not supposed to be? Is there any type of housing or is there any type of shelter for these people to go? Because there's been people that's been saying that this has been happening still.
So is it an eviction from a HUD assisted housing, do you know, or is it privately owned? Is Section 8 involved, or?
So I believe it is Section 8 and then also privately owned. Okay.
So then what I would suggest you to tell this person is to call me at HUD. My direct number is 313-234-7502.
Okay. This is Michael?
This is Michael, yep. And that's my direct number.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Then also, next question is for, I think it's HUD still, CDBG grant. Last year, it wasn't allowed for people to, different organizations, nonprofits to do service programs. Is this allowed now with the CDBG grant that's available now due to all the stuff that's going on? Because residents aren't necessarily getting all the resources that they need, while different organizations and block clubs are doing the work, but not necessarily getting all the assistance that's needed that they can go at full capacity.
Yeah, so I do know, without getting into the exact details, that the CDBG has a very small public service cap for those types of services that the city can pay for. And it is my understanding under the CARES Act that cap has been lifted. So they should be able to cover that with their additional allocation now.
Okay, can you say that the first part, where it's coming from?
The first part is the CDBG regulation. At 24 Code of Federal Regulations. I don't remember the off the top of my head, but the regulations are the ones that really require that they have a smaller cap on public service costs. Now with the CARES Act, they've increased that cost and allowed the city to go above it.
Oh, okay, got you. And then this is back to, I forgot who, but is there any more additional placement for homeless individuals that don't necessarily have COVID? Because I know yesterday the discussion was the housing that was available was for people, homeless people who had COVID. Has there been anything available for people who are homeless who aren't necessarily COVID positive?
Well, I think other than the normal placement at the shelters, I can't think of anything additional that is being provided. My best advice would be if someone is in immediate danger by being homeless, where they have no place to stay, is to call 211, and then they're able to be, you know, I don't want to say dealt with, but they're able to be assisted by one of the providers under the continuum of care and be able to be placed in a shelter, depending on their circumstances. And it makes a difference if it's a woman who has children, if it's a man, if it's a vet, they still have other options. But that's the best place to start.
Okay, that's it. Thank you guys so much. And once again, stay blessed and safe.
You're welcome. You as well.
Thank you. And also, I want to add that if you have a situation where you know you have someone homeless that need assistance, you can also call my office because we've been working with shelters. And I don't know if all of the shelters are necessarily dealing with COVID-19, but I'm going to assume that they're not. But if you want to call my office at 313-224-1245 and leave a message, we try to assist with those that are homeless. Thank you.
And caller, the panelists mentioned the coordinated assessment model. That number is 313-484-4449. And you can call that number from 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Okay? We'll go on to our next caller, Madam President. That is the last three numbers of your phone number, 071. Caller 071, you are unmuted.
Thank you, caller 071. You have the floor.
Madam President, it's a pleasure again, and thank you as well for hosting this live forum. My question is towards Constance or Brian. What documents would be needed for the small business loans? And that's for the emergency relief loan, EIDL.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yep. So for the EIDL disaster loan, you're going to go to sba.gov/disaster. You're going to fill out a 3 or 4 page application. You're actually not going to send in any documents or upload any documents initially. It's going to ask for some financial information. You're going to input the information. You're just going to add it on the website, but not actually send anything in. Then you'll hit submit and get it to our centers. If the loan officer at the disaster center requires additional information, they will reach out to you. But during the initial application, you don't submit or upload any documents.
Okay, awesome. And so once submitted for the emergency relief, are we eligible for the grants as well?
Yeah, so the EIDL application, when you apply for the greater EIDL loan, part of that application will ask if you want to be, if you would like to sign up for the EIDL Advance Grant, which you will. So you'll put your information in there, but it's part of the application. So once you click yes, I want the EIDL Advance, you'll put in your checking account information, and the grant money will be sent out. They say within 72 hours of the application. It might be a day or two longer than that, but 3 days is what we're hearing. You'll get that money right away, and that is meant to get money in your hands while you're waiting on the application, the overall application, to be underwritten and approved.
Nice, awesome. And so the actual grant writing on here, because this is one of my first times actually writing a grant. I don't know if this should be directed more towards our president or the council here. But will you guys be helping us out with grant writers, or is there any type of grant writing services that is offered here for citizens like myself?
So at this particular time, I can tell you that I don't think I know council does not have a grant writing in place. We have a person that deals with grants, but they basically are not one that is assisting the citizens. That's something that we can look at, or perhaps we can direct you to someone who can assist citizens with grant writing. So please, again, contact the office and leave your information at 313-224-1245.
Thank you, Madam President. Our next caller is caller 533. Caller 533, you are unmuted.
Caller 533.
Yes, I'm here. I'm going to get us off of speakerphone so I don't get the, well, I didn't realize I would get called. So now, what I'm trying to do is get off speakerphone. Please indulge me. There. Good evening, and thank you, Council President Brenda Jones. I am so excited to see that you are doing as well as you are under the conditions that I suspect you are working with as it relates to being identified positively with COVID-19. This is Commissioner Holt, and my comments have to do with the stay-at-home ban. Now, yesterday at the Board of Police Commissioners meeting, Deputy Chief LaValle did a phenomenal job of explaining what the ban is about and why. And what we might want to understand, and folks, you know, a number of people are already aware, this is not something, this ban is not unique to the state of Michigan. It is, in some instance, a ban that's really imposed by several states in the nation. And the ban, of course, is for the purpose of saving people's lives. So we had an incident over here at Rouge Park, and the incident really was reported by the citizens in that area. And Commander Patterson attended to the incident and was very, very professional in how he managed the situation. So I think, too, with us speaking on the stay-at-home ban, we need our citizens to understand, those who seem to feel that it's an imposition on their civil rights, that this ban is intended to save lives. Hello?
I'm here, I'm listening, and I'm shaking my head. Oh. So I agree
right.
with you.
Right, yeah. So again, we cannot say too often how urgent it is that the purpose of that ban is so that we can get a better control on this virus, so that we all can be able to go out into our various communities and places and enjoy what we've been access to in the past. So again, it cannot be overstated. It cannot be mentioned. And in fact, when we were on the, when we were having our meeting, because we did, well, you know, we did a Zoom meeting, the ban went from $500 up to $1,000. And again, it is because we're just not paying attention and trying to work with the state so that we can get a better control on this virus. So again, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for doing as well as you are and still determined to work.
Okay, thank you, Police Commissioner Annie Hope. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
I just want to go back into the individual who called about the grant writing, and I wanted to add that the Accounting Aid Society provides assistance for grant writing and for grant writing and filling out applications for small businesses. And that is, again, Accounting Aid Society provides assistance for grant writing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Go to our next caller.
Yes, ma'am. Our next caller is caller number 737. Last three digits of your phone number is 737, and you are unmuted.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you once again, Councilwoman Jones, President Jones. I appreciate these calls more than I think you had possibly know. I'm just listening in on today's calls, absorbing in all the information, and I'd like to share, because I'm not online, so I can type this out to everybody. I have extensive grant writing experience. I'm to help you to the best of my abilities. Let me know when you're ready. It'll go really slow. My email is CDE, the word consulting, LLC@gmail.com. So I'm going to repeat that once again. C as in cat, D as in David, E as in Edward, the word consulting, CONSULTING, LLC@gmail.com. I will try my very best to help you. No charge, no cost. Please reach out, and if you need anything, I'm more than happy. And once again, thank you everybody for putting this together.
Thank you, and thank you for calling with that information. I did not have that information handy, and that's why I asked him to call my office, and I will get back with him. So thank you so much for calling and being willing to assist those that are in need of assistance. Our next
President, our next caller is caller number 116. The last three digits of your phone number are 116. Caller 116, you are unmuted.
Thank you.
Hello, and I want to thank. Hello?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my doctor took me off work back in December, so I've been off on medical since December. Would I still qualify for unemployment?
Ms. Logan, or?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that online. I would apply. And if not, we could probably get you over to a different program that might fit your needs, because it was before COVID. Are you still unable to work?
Yes.
Okay. I would go ahead and apply, yes. And then let me give you my email address.
Okay, I'm ready.
It's Berry, BERRY, K4 at michigan.gov.
Okay, it's Berry, K4 at michigan.gov.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Madam President, our final caller is a caller who called in earlier. Caller number 534. Caller number 534. You are our final caller, and you are unmuted.
Caller number 534, you have the floor.
Yes, this is Joanne Warwick calling again, wanting to address the stay-at-home, stay-away orders. And if the police commissioner is still on, that would be helpful. I missed the meeting yesterday. But in terms, so people can go out and exercise. I've seen, like today, or yesterday, I saw 3 young people walking down the street. They weren't practicing the 6 feet away, so maybe that is an issue. I would suggest in this time where it's pretty strange for everybody, unprecedented, and I get it, and I appreciate all the efforts that people are making. However, I'm not sure that hitting people with these big fines right away is a good idea. Perhaps some people don't really understand, like maybe they could be outside and talking together. I spoke with some senior citizens the other day who said that they put like 2 tables between each other and sit outside at the end of the table so that they can communicate. So I'm wondering, in terms of the young people, I know some young people have just blatantly gone out and had coronavirus parties. I get that. That's not right. However, I do think it might be wise to implement a system where you give some people some warnings the first time, make sure that they really understand what the rules are. Just like, you know, people needed some clarity about doing construction work. Well, again, construction work is non-essential. Well, then land bank sales should be non-essential, right? So I think there's a lot of lack of clarity out there. I do share the same concerns for the constitutional violations that are happening here. They're not, you know, intended that way, but if this continues a lot longer, I'm a little concerned about city council voting on things when we don't have the ability to assemble. So again, I understand the importance of stopping the curve, everybody needing to abide by these rules, but I really don't think it's a good idea to be hitting people with fines right away when there's a lack of clarity. So I would highly suggest looking at some kind of graduated response process, that you get a warning, you maybe even get a second warning, but to flat out hit people with fines and a lack of, you know, not the best clarity, I don't think is a good idea moving forward. And hopefully you can take that into consideration and modify the responses accordingly. And thank you for letting me voice that concern after I'd already spoken. I appreciate that. And last thing, I missed the very beginning, and I just wanted to hear from Council President Jones. Did you explain to everybody how you're feeling? And I mean, I'm glad you're doing well. I was horrified to see that, you know, you were hit with it. Is there anything you can tell people to assure them about how well you're doing, and in terms of, did you just get a test? Were you feeling something? Because a lot of people may be feeling a little this and that, including myself, and we get a little concerned. So I wonder if you can have any guidance or anything you'd like to share on that. And I'm glad that you are doing well, and I hope you're one of the asymptomatic persons and that this won't be a problem for you.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, I will comment on how I'm feeling, but I want that to be the last thing. If there's another caller on the line, I'd like the caller to answer or to be able to ask their question. And I will definitely respond to how I'm feeling. Do we have another caller on the line?
We have one more final caller, and that is caller number 691. Caller number 691, you are unmuted.
Yes, hi, this is, can you hear me?
Yes, call ahead.
Oh, great. I was actually calling for two reasons. I'm part of the Burns, Fisher, Seneca, and Pingree Park block clubs. And the questions I'm fielding from my neighbors over here, one is a lot of property managers and or people in the housing are wondering the unemployment or the loans, how does that work? And if it does for them, as they aren't being able to collect rent and are okay with that during this time, but is there something to help them get through this? And then lastly, the lady who said she would do the volunteering of grant writing, I get asked that all the time, and I did not get her email written down correctly. And I would love if somebody could repeat that for me if they wrote it down.
Thank you. I don't know if my staff.
Council President, I do have that email address. It is C as in cat, D as in David, E as in Edward, consulting, LLC@gmail.com.
Excellent, thank you.
My pleasure.
And Madam President, I would like to remind all of our participants today that any resources that you get of that nature, that is something that is not a part of the Office of Council President Brenda Jones, and it's something that you would be engaging yourself. That would be a one-on-one relationship, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the Office of Council President Brenda Jones, although you were introduced to that person on this call.
Thank you so much, Mr. Grady. And first of all, I want to say thank you to all of the panelists who took place, who stayed, first of all, came to the show and made presentations. So I want to just say thank you for giving up your time to give information to those who needed the information. Second of all, I want to thank you for being able to stay to assist and answer the questions that our callers had. I thank you so very much for the information. I want to make a couple of comments, and one I want to say was by someone who talked about not being able to see the panelists and not being able to see the individuals. And I want to just say that this show, digital community engagement, is being done by my office, which is the Office of Council President Brenda Jones. It is not a city council formal meeting or a city council session. It is just a digital community engagement to be able to assist citizens and answer questions and give out information during COVID-19. It was something that my office volunteered to do. And so we are not held by the standards that might be standards of the regular Meetings Act standard. Then I wanted to respond to another comment about council voting on things that they should not be voting on because it is not an official meeting. And I think that's what was said. And so when council has been having the video conferencing meeting, and I think we've had 2, we had those meetings and they were conducted via video conferencing in regards to an executive order that was put out by the governor that we could have, our legislative bodies could have video conference meetings. And so our meetings were properly held. We gave the public an opportunity to speak, and we ran our meetings. And now I want to address my health issues, and I want to say thank you to all of the citizens in the city of Detroit who have called me, who have texted me, who have left messages for me concerned about my health. First, I want to say that God has truly blessed me. I did not have all of the symptoms that others have had with the COVID-19. I've had symptoms with my breathing, shortness of breath, and I have asthma and bronchitis. And so I often have a problem with shortness of breath when the weather changes. Having the symptoms that I had with shortness of breath, and I had just a little coughing, I was able to get the test. And it was the second time that I went to one facility, which was Beaumont, and they checked my vitals and said my vitals were okay. And they listened to my lungs and they said everything was okay and that I did not need the test. I later had the test days later and tested positive. Again, my symptoms are mild in comparison to some of the symptoms that others have had, and some have lost their lives. So I truly do not take COVID-19 with the symptoms that I have lightly at all. And again, I'm just thanking God to be able to do the things that I am continuing to do, and to be able to continue to represent you as your Detroit City Council President. And I thank God for life and still having life. I've been asked several times when I got my results, was I scared and how did I feel? And yesterday I talked about a Bible verse that was a Bible verse to me, a great Bible verse to me. And I now want to just talk about Psalms 91 that says, "You will not fear any danger by night or any error during the day. You will not be afraid of diseases that come in the dark, or sickness that strikes at noon. At your side, 1,000 people may die, or even 10,000 right beside you, but you will not be hurt. The Lord is your protection. You have made God Most High your place of safety. Nothing bad will happen to you. No disaster will come to your home. He has put his angels in charge of you to watch over you wherever you go." And I've been reading several scriptures that continue to give me the strength that I have, and my faith is very strong. And again, I just want to say thank you to all of the Detroit residents, to all of the Michiganders. This is truly a difficult time for everyone. I'm sure someone knows someone who has lost their life to COVID-19. I will continue to fight for the citizens in the great state of Michigan, in the great city of Detroit, that we all will be protected and that everyone who wants to test will be able to get the test, and hopefully we will have the ability to get enough tests to be able to test those who want to be tested. I thank God that right now the city has been the first one to receive the rapid testing kit to be able to test our first responders who are putting their lives on the line to help save other lives. And again, I truly want everyone who feel they need to be tested to be able to get an opportunity to be tested. And I will continue to fight and pray and hope that we have enough kits come this way to be able to do so. But in the meantime, while doing so, I just want to say to everyone to please continue to be careful. Please continue to wash your hands with hot water and soap if you do not have that readily available to you. To please use hand sanitizers. To keep your hands out of your face, because we often find ourselves rubbing our eyes, rubbing our nose, rubbing our mouth, and just putting our hands in our face. Please keep your hands out of your face. Please practice social distancing if you must go out. Please. I don't want to see anyone lose their lives to this disease. I thank Henry Ford Hospital for the work that they are doing. And I thank all of the doctors, all of the volunteers, and everyone who is helping during this time. But again, it's so important to me that each one of you do your part to keep yourselves safe. You may not have the disease or the virus, but you might be a carrier. Everyone's immune system is different. Some may not catch it from you, and then someone might catch it from you. please, please be careful. Please exercise the things that I just talked about. It can happen to you just like it happened to me. No one is exempt from COVID-19. God bless you. Please have a safe weekend. Please tell the next person to wash their hands or to use hand sanitizer. If there's someone you can assist who have a question and you've received information just by being on this call today or yesterday or any other day, please share that information. Too often we get information and we don't share it with the next person. Please share information. It is so important. And that's why we are putting these digital community engagement meetings on, because we want to share the information with you. And so does our panelists. Again, I thank you for spending time with us this evening. I thank you for spending time with us this week. We will continue our community engagement. Please stay tuned to our Facebook page. And I look forward to talking to you all, to seeing you all when this pandemic has passed. Stay safe until then. God bless each and every one of you. And I love you regardless to whether or not we agree or whether or not we disagree. Please know that I still appreciate you and I still love you. God bless you. And I am tuning off. Have a great weekend.